Hi, I'm Linda Mechner, your host for Why Eating Healthy is Not Enough. I'm back again now with Cynthia Harrison, who is a mystic medicine woman with a background in social work and anthropology. And welcome. I am so thrilled to have you here. And I'd love to invite you to share just how you got to do the work you do.
Okay, well, basically, coming from social work and anthropological background or understanding, obviously I have an interest in humans and the human systems, what makes people tick, why we are the way we are, why we do what we do. And that also comes from my upbringing and my background and what I saw in the world growing up. And it intrigued me. The human beings intrigued me, but also because, of, I suppose, the not so good things, or the perceived not so good things that happen to people around me and even myself. And so I wanted to understand the human condition. Eventually, got into those professions, and I realized through really looking at trauma and trauma-informed work that the ways that we address particular outcomes of trauma and stress and our difficult life experiences weren't really cutting it, weren't really assisting at a deep level. And so I went searching for ways for myself and for my clients and students, ways of knowing, I suppose you would call it. So just a side note, I've always been intuitive. I am an intuitive, what we would call medicine woman, which covers a gamut of information and modalities. But that's where I started, like the formality of how to assist humanity. And social work and anthropology were, I suppose, my way in. And through doing that work and working with people every day, all ages, for many years, like 20 odd years, seeing that how we were working with people was not, as I said, getting to the core of the issues. So then I started to look at, well, what was I doing for myself? And it was more to do with the ancient practices and energy techniques. And so I started to bring them slowly into my formal practice as a clinical social worker. And I was getting better outcomes, and my boss was saying, what are you doing? And I couldn't really explain fully what I was doing because it was a bit sort of out there. Over time, I was able to explain it and actually share what I was doing with people. And that's sort of what I do today. Everything I'm about really is to empower people to be able to do for themselves and impact their health and vitality for themselves. So they literally, some people say, you're working yourself out of a job. Well, yes. As a social worker, I wanted to work myself out of a job, which meant that people wouldn't be dependent on me or anybody else. They would have the tools and mechanisms to navigate the structures of, the systems and whatnot. And then as a medicine woman, overlaying that with empowering themselves and giving them the tools and techniques so that they could do what I call energy first aid, which is, keep their systems humming and flowing so they don't have to constantly run to the GP or the doctor. There is a time and place for Western medicine, but, there's energetics that we can do every day that are so simple that, my granddaughter, when she's 6 now, but when she was 2, she was, she was doing particular movements and whatnot to help her if she got a cough, or when she was born, she had like colic and things like that. So we had techniques that really just movements that assist the flow of energy, and then, the physiology. So in a nutshell, that's sort of how I got into a little more of, I suppose you would call, the alternative health and wellness. But I now overlay all of it. So looking at the physiology and the energetics of the human system for basically, full potential, your full vitality, rather than just surviving. You've
Right.
heard that. Most people talk about that, but this is in practice, right? If you've been through a lot of stuff, or even just general stress, you don't want to just get through the day. I mean, yes, you want to survive, but my sort of passion is to help people thrive and really have vitality back. So that's the key to what I'm here for.
Yeah, which is so awesome. I think that, we in Western civilization, Western cultures, we look at medicine as this very, real thing. Like, that's the truth. If you can prove it in a laboratory, it must be true. And so we have all of this belief and adherence in Western medicine. And really things are moving much more to mind, body. But then there's this whole other level of energetic medicine. And I get the sense that a lot of people kind of poo-poo energy medicine. Like it's woo, it's too woo-woo, it's not real. That's for people that live in California. I grew up on the East Coast of the United States, which is much more straight-laced than California. And all of the fruits and nuts lived in California. Anyway, but so energy medicine was for Californians. But and I think that we are at this transitional period between being kind of stuck in Western medicine, which in the relative scheme of things is so new. It's only a few hundred years old at best. And then there's this energy medicine that's as old as humanity.
Exactly. Some of the techniques are like 5,000 years old. And the thing is, let me just touch on that when you said about Western medicine or scientific proof and those sorts of things. Pretty much everything that I share, we do have the science of it. We understand, because I'm a social scientist, I have that background of, and I started off in research. So, as a student social worker, my first placements were research placements. So I was researching things like the barriers to education for homeless children, and educating teachers and foster parents and whatnot on those sorts of things, so that children were getting past these barriers that were more around their health and wellness. Because housing and homelessness is a whole. It's not just about giving somebody a home. Okay, so just to sort of let you know that, yes, I might be a little bit cosmic, but I do have that solid background coming from, and my father, was an electrical engineer, and went into physics and all that sort of stuff. So I have that background, but what was informing me, because the curiosity to be, an inventor and a visionary, you have to have that curiosity. So to be a good researcher, it's like not knowing the outcome. I always say that if you know your hypothesis, like if you know what the outcome is, there's no point doing the research. It's the curiosity that breaks open the newness, the new knowings that informs us to be more, to expand our awareness, our consciousness and whatnot. I talk of consciousness a lot. I wasn't going to talk about this, but it's come up. So the new technology that we're building, it's cutting edge technology for health and wellness, to be able to non-invasively image our systems, right? So I'm already testing the prototype for that. So some people would see on the outside what I'm doing is a little bit out there in, we could say woo-woo. I don't particularly like to keep saying that, because it isn't. It's just that we say woo-woo because we don't understand. And when you understand specifically how that energy moves, what the energy systems are. I work with 12 energy systems. In some modalities, they work specifically with 9. But there are specific energy systems. We know the names of them. We know where they flow. We know how they flow. We know what they impact, right, in our physical body. And we know the ailments, symptoms, illnesses that are the outcome of those energies and behaviors.
Wait, so
emotions.
I think I need you to back up. So I'm really curious because if there's something on an energetic level that we can connect with specific illnesses and ailments, that's really interesting. And so what is it that you're looking at energetically that connects to physical, diagnosable maladies?
All right, so that's it. I could go anywhere with that question. So let's look at a couple of the meridians, for instance, and then if we'll see, where we go from there.
And meridians being like energy channels that run through our body.
So we have 14, but technically we have 12, and we've got 2 what are called vessels. One goes up the front of the body and one comes up the back, and they connect and they spin the energy. And so we have 14.
Would these be similar to what acupuncturists work on? Are they the same?
Within every meridian, there are acupuncture or acupressure points.
Right, and so it's the same meridians that we're talking about.
Yeah, it's the same.
Okay.
However, not many people understand that they can work them themselves and they don't need needling. They can use their fingers, their hands, massage and whatnot to impact these. So the 2 that I share a lot about are triple warmer and spleen. Mm-hmm. And the reason that so we're not talking about the organ, but some of the meridians connect directly, or most of them connect directly to an organ or govern an organ, but they also, so triple warmer, for instance, governs the endocrine system. Mm-hmm. So it's the key to, in my work, looking at what your triple warmer meridian is doing. Some people call it triple heater in ancient Chinese medicine. It's called heater, triple heater. So there's different names for it, but basically they're doing, it's the same information or similar information. So looking at trauma or stress, we're obviously looking at our emotional, the emotional impact or the psychology of that. But when we look at it energetically, we can make effect, right, really quickly. So calm the system, regulate the nervous system very, very quickly if we understand these meridians. So triple warmer, when we're in perceived threat, will turn on, okay? So it governs the endocrine system, which means we go into the fight, flight, freeze, and all the chemical, neurochemicals and hormones and whatnot flood the system. So I feel like most people know the fight, flight, freeze response. Mm-hmm. If you want me to go into it, I will, but we'll just see. And so that meridian or that energy then becomes over-energized because to protect us, it's there to protect us, right? It's there as an external protector for perceived threat. The thing is that when we're in stress for a long period of time, that meridian or that energy, because if we think of meridian, the energy is more than just the meridian, but let's just put that here for a moment. So triple warmer is coming on like our protector, our defense. When I'm teaching about this, I talk about triple warmer as like the knight with his sword, and he's standing in front of the maiden, protecting her, okay? So what we want to do is when the threat is no longer there, or the threat was just a perceived threat, it actually wasn't something that was going to harm us. So it might be sitting in front of the computer for too long. Triple warmer turns on, because these energies haven't evolved with our technology.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why it links to the anthropology and whatnot, because the human system, these energetics and these simple tools help the energetics of the human being evolve, so that we can deal with the technologies that we're, you know, I'm sitting in front of a light so that you can see me, because this room literally has dark walls. You can see the dark walls. And if I didn't have that light on, I would just be in this blackness.
Right.
Sitting in front of that light, I can already feel it, that it's impacting me. So because I'm a sensitive, I feel energies, I see energies and whatnot. So that's informed my work as well, because, you know, I have that capacity. However, when we are in a traffic jam, when we're, you know, sitting in front of the computer, we're stressed, we've got an assignment. A friend of mine was saying yesterday, you know, she's feeling like she's getting a cold, and she's got assignments due. It's a stress response. So a stress response impacts our immune system. Energetically, spleen meridian and triple warmer meridian I'm going to say govern the immune system.
Mm-hmm.
Those energies are what assist that flow of our immune system. So if triple warmer goes on, it needs extra energy to protect us. First place it takes its energy from is the spleen meridian.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's pulling energy from other meridians, but the first place that it takes it from is the spleen meridian, which then means that spleen meridian is more often than not under energized. Mm-hmm. So it's taking the balance of this seesaw effect of, you know, our body's energetic harmony out of whack. And so then our immune system is impacted. So that's, in a nutshell, that's sort of, I'll just take a breath so you can ask a question if you like.
Yeah. You know, I'm familiar with, I mean, I've done acupuncture for years. Okay. I mean, I'm no expert by any stretch. But, you know, some of the terms you're using are familiar, like certainly spleen energy, and I'm like chronically spleen deficient. And so, you know, triple warma I'm not as familiar with, but I love the imagery of the knight in front of the maiden protecting, because I totally get that. And, you know, in the work that I do, I think of it more in terms of, you know, adrenal, you know, overstimulated, that fight or flight response. So I get it. I get the concept. And and so this overactivated part of us, you know, robs us of other vital energy. I totally get that. And so, you know, back to the question, what are some of the typical syndromes or symptoms that you see from this paradigm? Like, are there particular diseases that are common?
Yes. The first one, and this is actually doing a course on the weekend, but the core impact to the body at this time, more than ever before in the last 3 years, has been how we can earth and our what's called our polarity. So when we're stressed, our triple warmer goes into its stress response, takes from spleen, then takes from other meridians. But what happens is, so going back to those acupressure or acupuncture points, when we're in stress, they go into irregularity. And what that means, there's 3 main types of irregularity. So there's frozen, which is what it sounds like. It means there's no flow through those points. So it might be 1 or 2 or 100 or whatever. Anyway, we can test those. We can see what ones are irregular and correct them. And I teach how to do that yourself. So you don't necessarily have to test them. There are things that you can just do so that you're sort of in front of the cart, so to speak, you know, you're on top of it, because we know that with the shifting of the earth polarity, that, you know, we're linked to our environment now and the earth. So what happens out there is impacting us. So what I call it is subliminal stress, and we can't see those stressors. They're toxins and things in the environment, but they impact us by sending off that stress alarm, which has the, you know, the general physiological stress response, but it also has the energetic stress response, because everything hits the energetics first, then shows up physiologically. So earthing, grounding, how I teach about earthing is pretty different to what's out there, because of, you know, these particular points in the body and how they freeze. So frozen is nothing moves. Then we have reversed. So instead of a polarity being north-south or positive-negative, it might be flipped around. Do you understand?
Mm-hmm.
So if you've got a, yeah, so it might, instead of north-south, it'd be south-north, which means that the polarity is out and is pushing instead of pulling, or pulling instead of pushing. So the flow's interrupted in some way. And then we have submerged. So, and this relates to acupuncture as well, because if a point is submerged, then even needling it, you can't touch it. So if you've got irregular energies and they're not addressed first, then, or reactive energies, which is similar, then the modalities that you're doing are not going to be as effective. And if they are effective for the moment, they won't hold. Because what triple warmer is doing, what these energies are doing, is trying to keep your system in that state because of the threat. Now that state of, you know, stress response does keep us safe when we are in, our life is at risk. But if we're, you know, just living our daily life and that stress response is on constantly, what it does is, you know, floods us with adrenaline and cortisol and whatnot. But over time, what I call this invisible shadow type response is where we get a lack of cortisol. So cortisol helps the adrenaline come down, but then, you know, when we're in this stress response ongoingly, we have a drop, or some of us have a drop in cortisol, which means that the types of methods that majority of people are doing to keep their vitality aren't working, because they're a different flow of the energetics. So does that make sense?
Yeah, you know, it's so funny. It was, you know, what you're explaining is very similar to, you know, another one of the participants in this summit who happens to be an MD. And so it's really interesting, you know, it's the same paradigm being explained. She comes from, I mean, she does do Chinese medicine, but she's, you know, she's MD, you know, emergency medicine trained. And, you know, so here you are describing the exact same thing, but from more of an energetic standpoint.
Yeah. And the thing is with the, well, I'm not really answering your question. I'll get to the, I'll get to that in a moment. But I suppose what's really, I've been seeing over the last 3 years, which is very new. Okay. So it's in the last 3 years, and I've been talking to other, you know, MDs and energy practitioners and, you know, other people that understand the energetics of the earth, scientists and physicists and whatnot. Like, you know, what's happening with the human system has changed. How we're flowing with the energies of the earth and what's around us has changed, which means that our physiology is reacting in a different way. And if we aren't on top of that, we're going to be treating people the same old, and not getting any result. And you probably see that yourself in the work that you do, that we're doing the same things, or you're eating the same food, or you're doing something that's helped you stay, fairly on track, and now it's not working.
Yeah,
right?
And on an individual case-by-case basis, any number of things could explain that for any individual. But the fact that it's happening, more and more across the globe is curious.
Well, I'll tell you this. I'll tell you this much. Everything links to these meridians, these energetics. It's not just the meridians, it's it's the overall of the energetics, right? Because it impacts the immune system, right? So the immune system, which is governed by both spleen and triple warmer, right, is impacted. And so the triple warmer dominance contributes to these chronic physical ailments. So when spleen's chronically weak, which is, we're in that stress response. So spleen is chronically weak. That energy is trying to keep us, you could see her as Maid Marian or Guinevere, if you want a visual, right? She's trying to do her work, but she doesn't have enough because, Sir Galahad, or whoever you want to call your knight, is needing more energy and to be fueled to keep us safe. So our metabolism's impacted, our hormones are impacted.
Yeah.
Triple warmer regulates our body temperature. So things like, because it's our primal survival, anything that, when you get hot flushes, if you're hormonal and all of that, all the hormonal stuff links to triple warmer.
Interesting.
The adrenals, kidney, autoimmune. So when triple warmer and spleen are out of balance, or anything autoimmune, including MS, what else? Like weight problems is something that's interesting, because with spleen meridian, when it's out, it can't metabolize. And so what does that mean? It means that you're not only unable to metabolize your environment and the toxins and the, even the EMFs and what's going on around you, your relationships, how we digest, our relationships with another person, but we aren't able to digest, so to speak, or metabolize our healthy food. So one of my teachers, she, eating, she has this story. So Donna Eden is one of my teachers, and she says when she was younger, she ended up in hospital eating green beans, and another time eating an apple, because of just that her spleen, she did have MS as well at another point, but she healed herself through energy medicine of all of those. And there isn't, even in her scans, it doesn't show that she had MS, even though her previous scans showed she had MS. Okay, so there's all these different, I suppose, evidence that this works. But the reason why she would eat so-called healthy food and it not be good for her was because of her spleen energy. And, it doesn't, literally you can eat the most healthy food to somebody else, but it's toxins to you because you can't metabolize it. And what I've found, like, I'm not allowed to talk about, diagnosing and all of that sort of stuff, which I don't, but I track energy. And with my clients, we track the energy, and a lot of them are coming to me because they have diabetes. So these are some of the things: triple warmer, spleen out of balance, asthma, diabetes, hyperglycemic, morning fatigue, allergies, all of those sorts of things. And I don't tell anybody to come off their medication, but what happens is if they're working with me and their medical people, they come down off their medication gradually. So because we're working with spleen meridian, they're able to digest and metabolize the medication, so it's working better. So they need less. So then it's also financially beneficial because you don't need to be buying so much.
Right.
And so I have case after case that I could talk about that. So I'm not curing anything, so to speak. Okay?
Right.
I'm not healing and I'm not curing.
Yeah. So I'm really curious about how you work with people. I know, I mean, we've talked about energy meridians, but when you work with your clients, what are you doing with them, or what are you having them do for themselves?
Okay. So, well, there's different levels. I say there's energy first aid, which, you know, I do Facebook Lives every Monday, and, you know, it's like a Q&A, but I'll share. Sometimes I do intuitive readings. They'll ask me something and I'll tune in and track their energy live online.
So you're tapping into their energy, like you're literally tapping into what's going on in them.
Yeah, and I just track it like I would if you were here. It's the same thing. It's good. It's through the science of it is what used to be called scalar wave, but it's called longitudinal wave now, but it's the same thing. So scientifically, it's a waveform that goes through anything. So, you know, that's the science of it. And I've had all my abilities tested and my EEG done. Actually, last January, I was in America, and a neuroscientist who was studying medicine men and women and shamans and whatnot, tested mine and how when I go into different states of consciousness, you know, what that looks like. And so when I'm working, what's happening. So that's a whole nother story. But the point is that, you know, that sounds a bit out there to some people. And that's why, you know, we're testing these abilities. We're testing because everybody has the capability. It's our evolution. It's our human development. We have dormant senses that we can tap into. So that's a little bit on the other side of things. But yes, that's why I can do what I can do. But I also teach people how they can do it for themselves. Mm-hmm. And so when they come to the clinic, so I'm sitting in my clinic room now, it's the same whether I'm working online. So after this call, I've got a client from the UK. He's actually a doctor and anesthesiologist, and you know, so I work with all sorts of people. Mm-hmm. And what I do is I track the energies. I don't have it handy. If I showed you what I'm tracking, it's a lot, and it's not. You know, I'm a medical intuitive as well, but this is all the same stuff. Does that make sense? It's like when you understand the energies, how they flow, what they do, you know, like a doctor would know about the circulatory system or you know what I'm saying, all the organs and whatnot. Mm-hmm. So we have to know about that to be able to understand the energetics as well. But we have the energy overlay to go, okay, well, we can remove the gallbladder, but there's still gallbladder energy there. Mm-hmm. It's still there. So to bring it back, because I know I'm going, we track the energy, whether it's over, under, energized, what all the other different energetics are doing, because we're just talking about the meridians. That's one energy system. Okay, there's so many others. And so I'm tracking all of those to see what's the pattern, what is your body, what language is it speaking, so that I can translate it, so to speak, so that you can start to understand the languages your body speaks. There's different dialects. Think of it like that. Every energy system is a slightly different dialect. And if I can help you understand those dialects and give you ways to move that or just to keep it flowing, then that's your first aid. And if you've got something chronic, you know, you may have to go to what I call the surgeon. So I see myself as the energy surgeon, so to speak, because you wouldn't do surgery on yourself. You would go to a surgeon or your doctor. So, you know, it's just a metaphor to go, okay, well, a lot of things you could do for yourself when you know how. And rather than keeping all of this secret and, you know, giving me all the power and, you know, all the money and all the rest of it, no, it's about sharing the information. We need to get this out there so that we can, you know, assist. It sounds a bit like assist humanity, but it's true. And so then we look at, you know, are there irregularities? What's your polarity? Are you earthing? Because when you're stressed, you're not earthing. Mm-hmm. Okay, if you're not earthing, you straight away get inflammation.
Right, and a lot of people,
chronic health.
Yeah, and a lot of people get stressed about their poor health, and it becomes a vicious cycle.
That's it.
And
yeah,
you know how incredibly difficult to break out of that. So I guess what you're doing is helping people interrupt, you know, patterns that aren't working, and you know, help them, I guess, repattern the energetics of their being on a bunch of levels.
That's perfect, because as a social worker, like I said, I think I said this before we went online, but you know, I worked on the neurological ward. I worked with people who were coming into hospital that were having brain surgery. So I had to understand that. I worked with neurosurgeons. I understand the repatterning of the brain through that physical trauma, but I also understand it through emotional trauma, like relational trauma. So complex trauma is relational trauma. It's when it's about other people impacting you. So people are getting PTSD from these types of traumas. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, if you've got PTSD, or what we used to call PTSD, but you know, I'm old school, so but post-traumatic stress, generally what happens is there will be a lack of cortisol, but most people who are traumatized will have too much cortisol, and too much cortisol creates all sorts of problems like toxicity, and can start to wear down your vascular system and all sorts of things. But what I'm interested in, and I can say this because in the past I had post-traumatic stress. So I cured myself from post-traumatic stress through energetics and breath work and whatnot. So what I'm interested in is what my systems were doing were not the same as other people. So I would do what, you know, I've trained in kinesiology, Eden energy medicine, other types of pranic healing, all sorts of things. But what was being shared wasn't helpful to me. And I was like, wow, why? Why is that good for you? And it's not doing much for me, because my system had low cortisol, not high cortisol. So you get what I'm saying?
Oh,
so
yeah.
What I've noticed, so that's the core of like tracking the energy. If you track the energy, you know what it's doing, and then you can give it, is it over or is it under? And then you can give the correct medicine, so to speak.
Right. You know, and I'm thinking about, I mean, you know, one of the things that I'm thinking about right now is MS. I talked to a client today who suffers from MS, and she's so debilitated that she has so little capacity to do anything for herself. And, you know, she's new to me, but at this point, her body weight is low and there's not much she can eat. And, you know, she's so hypersensitive that, you know, she's losing ground quickly. And so I think about this and think, you know, I wonder if, you know, she needs an energetic surgeon who can help her, you know, I don't think she can do it anymore. I think somebody needs to really be able to step in.
The thing with autoimmune, just for others and other practitioners as well, when you've got anything to do with the autoimmune disease, so MS is included in that, because the systems are so sensitive, they're chronically imbalanced,
Mm.
that we have to start really slowly, and that's what some people don't get. They feel like if the more that they do, so speaking as a practitioner, you know, they want to help that person and they do more and more and more, but that's almost, it hurts them because they're so sensitive. So what we would do is build up gently those energetics that are in that constant. So spleen would be one. Even if she worked, you know, one of the spleen energies. So, you know, there are things that you could do if she was so out, you know, MS is chronic, right? You would track those energies to see what's going on, what's the primary, but there are tiny things that she could do to get back on track. For instance, you know, so Donna Eden cured herself from MS, and what she said she did to start with was just start moving the energy. So she would do one leg, she would just do figure eights on one thigh, like that, because she was the same. You know, she had a heart attack at 30, like she's her chronic health, and she's in her 70s now, 75 I think she is now, and she's traveling the world, she's vibrant. This is energy. This is the vitality that we can all have. So that's why I'm passionate about it. But you know, for instance, just doing something like the triple warmer spleen hug, you know, which is, I'll show you now, because it's so simple. Well, what you do is just above the elbow is a triple warmer point, just above the elbow. So if you just put your hand just above the elbow and your other hand just under your left breast, that's a spleen point. So there's a spleen acupressure point, spleen 21, which is sort of at the side, but directly under the breast is a spleen neurolymphatic point. So you could sort of hold those while you're holding triple warmer and just sit there, you know. And if you sit there for, you know, a few minutes, if you've, you know, especially somebody who's got autoimmune, it's really gentle. We're just really saying, you know, I speak in a different way. Like when I'm talking to people about energy, I speak about the energy as almost like, you know, they're people in themselves. So I'll be saying, hey, spleen, you know, how are you? Do you need a bit of love? Triple warmer, definitely. You know, I talk with triple warmer, everybody's triple warmer. I'll be saying, how you doing, mate? You know, like it's a guy, because it is a positive energy. It's a you know, yang energy, so male. Yeah. So how you going, mate? Do you need a little help? What's going on? You know, I'm in my head, I'm speaking to these energies because they're part of us. And it links, actually, while I'm doing this, it links to being kind to the self and self-love, which is key to our health and wellness. I'm sure you will agree, right? But if we start seeing our body and our systems more than just that little self, the world just opens up. And the thing why I speak to triple warmer, and you know, it is a simple thing. All of this is very simple, really. The difficulty is actually doing things regularly. So changing the pattern of behavior, which you mentioned before, that's the difficulty. But why I speak in that way of respecting these energies is because, you know, we're respecting the vessel for a start and the vessel of the other person. But if triple warmer is on to protect you, it's not going to let anybody in or anything in or out. It's batten down the hatches, stay where you are. It's not safe, right? So there's no flow, there's no movement in energy. Energy needs to flow in particular patterns, in particular ways. And so when we understand that, we can assist it. But if triple warmer is doing its job and we come in and go, well, we're just going to shift that, we're going to change you, what happens? Right? And some of your viewers may have a memory of this if they've been to any healthcare professional or alternative health, because we start to make changes and their body freaks out.
Mm-hmm.
It's what we call a health crisis, like an energetic crisis. And it's because triple warmer goes, you know, like, whoa, there's even more coming on. I have to hold on stronger. So think of it this way. If we're having a conversation and you're really distressed, and I just say, you know, I try to tell you to get over it, or you'll be okay, but you're really distressed. That's not going to cut it, right? So, but when I connect with you and relate to you,
Mm-hmm.
right, just get to where you're at, as we used to say, you know, as therapists, you know, start where the person's at. Build the relationship in anything, right down to the cellular, or to the cells, or the cellular memory, is about relationship. And so when you build relationship with energy, with other people, with yourselves, with your anything, there's more room for that dance, right?
Right.
You're going to want to dance with me more, so to speak. I have this other way of speaking, but, you know, it is about this dance, this connection, this relationship. And
Right.
through that relationship, that alone can lift or assist you. But with triple warmer, he's going to then, so to speak, going to know that I'm not another threat, and I can access that energetics from the side or from the back. I don't have to come straight on as I'm going to fix you, because what I might do is come from the side and go, all right, I'm going to give spleen more energy so triple warmer can continue to take and do what it needs to do, right? But we're supporting spleen so it's not chronically under-energized. Then we can start to go, okay, so things are getting a little bit more balanced. Triple warmer, what do you need? Do you need to be strengthened, right? Because most people go, oh, triple warmer is taking from everybody. Why do we need to strengthen it? Well, in most cases you don't, but for anybody who has chronic health and low cortisol, anybody with PTSD most likely has low cortisol, they will be needing triple warmer strengthened a little bit. And when you strengthen it, it almost goes, oh.
I can
Right?
so identify with that. Like, you know, I remember times when I mean, this was in college, I did 2 all-nighters in a row, and it took me weeks to be able to fall asleep and sleep through the night after that. And it's that same thing.
Yes.
It's like I was so, you know, and in my language, I would say I'm so adrenalized that I couldn't shut it off. And I was so depleted, I was in overdrive.
Yeah. Well, just on, you know, every meridian has a time. It comes on every 2 hours. Triple warmer comes on every hour and a half. But what happens is, if you're not in bed or asleep by 11 p.m.,
Mm-hmm.
right, you probably know this, but just for other people who don't, if you're not in bed by 11 p.m., triple warmer comes on stronger and you get your second wind. But it's not a second wind. What it is your adrenals are you know, your stress response comes on and you're buzzing from the adrenals. And what I found, I think this is really interesting, because I've experienced all this myself. I've burnt out as a social worker and, you know, an Indigenous advocate and all sorts of work that I was out in the coalface, you know, stressful, seeing what majority of people don't see. They might see on the news, but, you know, in the field. So the stress response in myself, you know, self-care had to be number one. Well, it wasn't. So these are the things that happen. So I know firsthand what that feels like and how to overcome that. But what I was going to say was around I've lost it. Adrenal fatigue, adrenal burnout. Those sorts of things are really simple as well, like buzzing the adrenals. That buzzy feeling.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when people say, I hear that a lot, they feel like they're buzzing. That's that's the adrenals needing some help. It's also the electrics. We've got this electrical system, which is another one of the energy systems of the body. Literally, it feels like electricity and that buzziness. So that's a stress response too. But yeah, when you've gone the other way, you need to strengthen triple warmer rather than sedate triple warmer. And for so many years, I can't tell you how many years, I've been taught to strengthen, to sedate triple warmer, to take the energy out of it. But that didn't work for me. Oh, that's what I was going to say. Around when I learnt to strengthen triple warmer, like understanding my system is slightly different because of the, the post-traumatic stress and anxiety and whatnot. When I got to that deep calm, it was like literally, and I don't remember ever feeling that. Like it was such a deep calm, and that was from giving that energy a little bit more because it was on so much. It's almost like coming up to you when you're upset and putting my arm around you and saying, I'm here. And you go, oh, yeah, that's what it was like. And so I feel like that's, now that I've got that understanding personally and professionally, I can share that, and other people are getting those impacts and effects, because there's so many different ways to look at these, at trauma, stress, post-traumatic stress, mental health and whatnot. Mental health is energetic as well, but that's another story. I've done research, energetic research with extreme, people experiencing schizophrenia and whatnot, and on the medications, working with their psychologists, their psychiatrists, but they still wanted to die, and that wasn't good enough for me, right?
Yeah, we could get down a whole nother rabbit hole with mental health, because that's another huge area of interest of mine. And I just want to thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your knowledge and your wisdom. And it's so interesting to hear the way you approach health. I mean, it's so different and yet so similar to, acupuncture, to, all of the medicine that I'm familiar with. You just have this really interesting alternate approach. And I love it. Sort of like the stealth backdoor, I use the word dance, a dance of the energetics. And I just love it. And I hope the viewers got a lot of value out of today. I know I did. And it really lit up some bells for me, especially, around MS and some of these chronic issues, and, and really how to approach health when you're so incredibly depleted, you're just out of capacity to do anything. Because I hear that so much. Like, I meet so many people who've tried everything, they've done everything, and they're out of energy, they're out of money, they're out of everything. And, and then what's left? And there is this whole world of energetics. And I think it's just beautiful.
Yeah. Well, that's it. They're the people that generally find me. Even as a social worker, it was the same thing. They would go through so many different professionals. And I seem to have that role as being the safety net for the safety net. We have the safety nets, but people are falling through the safety nets. And so it's like, okay, so it has to be a little bit different to be able to, cover all of those disciplines, and because it's outside of, some of these things don't fit, the ABC of health and wellness. They're right. Just outside of that.
Not in a language we're used to hearing. That's,
yeah.
I think it's not universally true, but, commonly.
Yeah. And look, I'm not against, Western medicine at all. It's integrative medicine. It's working together. I work with, you know, people have their medical professionals. I work with them as well. You know, it's not about that. It's about collaborating and looking at what hasn't been understood or what hasn't been seen, and how we track that, and that informs their medical program. Yeah. So it's not one or the other.
I think that's brilliant. And I know you have a free gift to share with our listeners. Do you want to tell a little bit about that?
Well, when you asked me, I was like, oh, okay, I have all these things that I could share. But what I thought, because I wasn't 100% sure where we would go in this conversation, because, you know, we could talk forever, I thought, what would be most beneficial? And I came up with basically having a Q&A, or an hour live session where people could come and ask their questions, and I could actually show them some of the techniques that I touched on but didn't actually give you the techniques because we didn't have a lot of time. Right. But I'm about giving the person the experience. So if people are interested, they could access that live via Zoom, and we could share the tools and techniques that are, more relevant to them. And if you can't come, we'll record it, and, you might not be able to ask your questions direct, but you could still get the recording of that, because then it'll be more in line with what we've talked about today and specific for your viewers. Yeah.
Right.
So that's what I thought might be helpful.
I think that's fabulous. What a great way to be able to have some actual live one-on-one time with you, or maybe not one-on-one, but when they're asking the questions, it may as well be one-on-one, right?
Yeah, close enough. And, I'm not sure how else we could really do that. But I mean, other than, you contact me direct, or, you have a session, but,
all the link to your, to contact you, to the gift, is going to be right underneath this video. So
okay,
click down there and it'll be at your fingertips.
Wonderful.
And anyway, thank you all so much for being with us today. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did, and I will see you in the next session.